Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our reading of The Swiss Family Robinson. Today's chapter, The Rainy Season. Let's get started. One morning, as we were completing our spiral staircase and giving it such finish as we were capable of, we were suddenly alarmed by hearing a most terrific noise. The roaring or bellowing of a wild beast. So strange a sound was it that I could not imagine by what animal it was uttered. Jack thought it perhaps a lion. Fritz hazarded a gorilla, while Ernest gave it as his opinion, and I thought it possible that he was right, that it was a hyena. Whatever it is, said I, we must prepare to receive it. Up with you all to the nest while I secure the door. Then, arming the dogs with their collars, I sent them out to protect the animals below, closed the door, and joined my family. Every gun was loaded, every eye was upon the walk. The sound drew nearer, and then all was still. Nothing was to be seen. I determined to descend and reconnoiter, and Fritz and I carefully crept down. With our guns at full cock, we gilded among the trees. Noiselessly and quickly we pushed on farther and farther. Suddenly, close by, we heard the terrific sound again. Fritz raised his gun, but almost as quickly again dropped it and burst into a hearty fit of laughter. There was no mistaking those dulcet tones, hee-haw, 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 resounding through the forest. Our donkey Grizzle, braying his approach right merrily, appeared in sight. To our surprise, however, our friend was not alone. Behind him trotted another animal, an ass, no doubt, but slim and graceful as a horse. We watched their movements anxiously. Fritz, I whispered, that is an onager. Creep back to Falconhurst and bring me a piece of cord. Quietly now. While he was gone, I cut a bamboo and split it halfway down to form a pair of pincers, which I knew would be of use to me should I get near the animal. Fritz soon returned with the cord, and I was glad to observe also brought some oats and salt. We made one end of the cord fast to a tree, and at the other end made a running noose. Silently, we watched the animals as they approached, quietly browsing. Fritz then arose, holding in one hand the noose, and in the other some oats and salt. Grizzle, seeing his favorite food, thus held out, advanced to take it. Fritz allowed him to do so, and he was soon munching contentedly. The stranger, on seeing Fritz, started back, but finding her companion showing no signs of alarm, was reassured, and soon approached, sniffing, and was about to take some of the tempting food. In a moment, the noose left Fritz's adroit hand and fell round her neck. With a single bound, she sprang backward, the full length of the cord. The noose drew tight, and she fell to the earth, half strangled. I at once ran up, loosened the rope, and replaced it by a halter, and placing the pincers upon her nose, secured her by two cords fastened between two trees, and then left her to recover herself. Everyone hastened up to examine the beautiful animal as she rose from the ground and cast fiery glances around. She lashed out with her hounds on every side and, giving vent to angry snorts, struggled violently to get free. All her endeavors were vain. The cords were stout, and after a while she quieted down and stood exhausted and quivering. I then approached. She suffered me to lead her to the roots of our tree, which for the present formed our stables, and there I tied her up close to the donkey, who was likewise prevented from playing truant. Next morning I found the onager after her night's rest, as wild as ever, and as I looked at the handsome creature, I almost despaired of ever taming her proud spirit. Every expedient was tried, and at length, when the animal was subdued by hunger, I thought I might venture to mount her. Having given her the strongest curb and shackled her feet, I attempted to do so. She was as unruly as ever, and as a last expedient, I resolved to adopt a plan which, though cruel, was, I knew, attended with wonderful success by the American Indians, by whom it is practiced. Watching a favorable opportunity, I sprang upon the onager's back, and seizing her long ear in my teeth, in spite of her kicking and plunging, bit it through. The result was marvelous. The animal ceased plunging, and quivering violently stood stock still. From that moment, we were her masters. The children mounted her one after the other, and she carried them obediently and quietly. Proud, indeed, did I feel as I watched this animal which naturalists and travelers have declared to be beyond the power of man to tame, guided hither and thither by my youngest son. Additions to our poultry reminded me of the necessity of providing some substantial shelter for our animals before the rainy season came on. Three broods of chickens had been successfully hatched, and the little creatures, 40 in all, were my wife's pride and delight. We began by making a roof over the vaulted roots of our tree, forming the framework of bamboo canes, which we laid close together and bound tightly down. Others we fixed below as supports. The interstices were filled up with clay and moss, and coating the whole over with a mixture of tar and lime water, we obtained a firm balcony and a capital roof impervious to the severest fall of rain. I ran a light rail round the balcony to give it a more ornamental appearance, and below divided the building into several compartments. Stables, poultry yard, hay and provision lofts, dairy, kitchen, larder, and dining hall were united under one roof. Our winter quarters were now completed, and we had but to store them with food. Day after day we worked, bringing in provisions of every description. As we were one evening returning from gathering potatoes, it struck me that we should take in a store of acorns. Sending the two younger boys home with their mother in the cart, I took a large canvas bag, and with Fritz and Ernest, the former mounted on his onager, and the latter carrying his little favorite Nips, made a detour toward the acorn wood. We reached the spot, tied Lightfoot, as we called the onager, to a neighboring tree, and began rapidly to fill the sack. As we were thus engaged, Nips sprang suddenly into a bush close by, from which a moment afterward issued such strange cries that Ernest followed to see what could be the matter. Come, he shouted. Come and help me. I've got a couple of birds and their eggs. Quick, ruffled grouse. We hurried to the spot. There was Ernest with a fluttering, screaming bird in either hand, while with his foot he was endeavoring to prevent his greedy little monkey from seizing the eggs. We quickly tied the legs of the birds and, removing the eggs from the nest, placed them in Ernest's hat, while he gathered some of the long, broad grass with which the nest was woven, and which grew luxuriantly around for Franz to play at sword drill with. We then loaded the onager with the acorns and moved homeward. The eggs I covered carefully with dry moss that they might be kept warm, and as soon as possible I handed them over to my wife, who managed the mother so cleverly that she induced her to return to the eggs. And in a few days, to our great delight, we had 15 beautiful little Canadian chicks. Franz was greatly pleased with the swords his brother brought him, but having no small companion on whom to exercise his valor, he amused himself for a short time in hewing down imaginary foes, and then cut the reeds and slips and plaited them to form a whip for Lightfoot. The leaves seemed so pliable and strong that I examined them to see to what further use they might be put. Their tissue was composed of long silky fibers. A sudden thought struck me. This must be New Zealand flax. I could not rest till I had announced this invaluable discovery to my wife. She was no less delighted than I was. Bring me the leaves, she exclaimed. Oh, what a delightful discovery. No one shall now be clothed in rags. Just make me a spindle, and you shall soon have shirts and stockings and trousers, all good homespun. Quick, Fritz, and bring your mother more leaves. We could not help smiling at her eager zeal. Fritz and Ernest sprang on their steeds, and soon the onager and buffalo were galloping home again, each laden with a great bundle of flax. The boys dismounted and deposited their offering at their mother's feet. Daily did we load our cart with provisions to be brought to our winter quarters. Manioc, potatoes, coconuts, sweet acorns, sugar canes were all collected and stored in abundance, for grumbling thunder, lowering skies, and sharp showers warned us that we had no time to lose. Our corn was sowed, our animals housed, our provisions stored, when down came the rain. To continue in our nest we found impossible, and we were obliged to retreat to the trunk, where we carried such of our domestic furniture as might have been injured by the damp. Our dwelling was indeed crowded. The animals and provisions were below. There were beds and household goods around us, hemmed us in on every side. By dint of patience and better packing, we obtained sufficient room to work and lie down in. By degrees, too, we became accustomed to the continual noise of the animals and the smell of the stables. The smoke from the fire, which we were occasionally obliged to light, was not agreeable, but in time even that seemed to become more bearable. To make more space, we turned such animals as we had captured, and who therefore might be imagined to know how to shift for themselves, outside during the daytime, bringing them under the arched roofs only at night. To perform this duty, Fritz and I used to sally forth every evening, and as regularly every evening did we return, soaked to the skin. To obviate this, the mother, who feared these continual wettings might injure our health, contrived waterproofs. She brushed on several layers of caoutchouc, over stout shirts, to which she attached hoods. She then fixed to Lee's duck trousers, and thus prepared for each of us a complete waterproof suit, clad in which we might brave the severest rain. In spite of our endeavors to keep ourselves busy, the time dragged heavily. Our mornings were occupied in tending the animals. The boys amused themselves with their pets and assisted me in the manufacture of carding combs and a spindle for the muller. In the evening, when our room was illuminated with wax candles, I wrote a journal of all the events which had occurred since our arrival in this foreign land. And while the mother was busy with her needle, and Ernest was making sketches of birds, beasts, and flowers with which he had met during the past months, Fritz and Jack taught little Franz to read. Week after week rolled by. Week after week saw us still close prisoners. Incessant rain battered down above us. Constant gloom hung over the desolate scene. And that would be all for today. I'll see you all next time. See ya!